All right, let's talk about short films. And I have a feeling that by the end of this, you're going to look at them in a completely new light. Because there's this hidden world of power and creativity packed into these, well, tiny packages.
No, really, just for a second. What's your immediate thought? Is it, that thing you have to sit through before the real movie at a film festival? Maybe a student project?
You're probably picturing something cute, right? Something charming. A sweet little animated character, maybe? Something like this little guy here. Simple. Or maybe you're picturing that. Yeah, that is the opening shot from Luis Buñuel and Salvador Dali's 1929 surrealist shocker, Un Chien Andalou. It's one of the most jarring, unforgettable images in all of cinema, and it happens in the first 60 seconds of a 16-minute film. So much for sweet and simple, huh?
And see, that crazy contrast is exactly what we're talking about today. Short films aren't just one thing, so let's kind of reframe how we think about this amazing art form. The main thing to get is that they are not just tiny, shrunken-down versions of feature films. No way. They are their own thing entirely, a medium where filmmakers can take huge risks, boil an idea down to its absolute essence, and deliver a knockout punch that a 2-hour movie sometimes just can't.
So, let's start with reality, or at least different versions of it. Short documentaries, man, they have this incredible ability to grab a slice of life, or an argument, or just a moment in time with a crazy amount of intensity.
This quote right here from filmmaker Claes Danielsen really nails it. He's basically saying that in a short film, every single second counts. So the very act of choosing what to show and what to leave out is a political decision. There's just no such thing as a totally neutral camera.
And this idea has pretty much split documentary filmmaking into two big camps. On one side, you've got direct cinema, which tries to be a fly on the wall. Just observe, don't interfere. But on the other side, you've got this more engaged approach that says, look, a filmmaker has a point of view, so you might as well own it and use the film to make a point.
Okay, check this out for a perfect example of political power. Back in 1964, the East German State Studio actually paid for the short doc about young people on vacation. But the film captured them wearing blue jeans, singing English folk songs, and that little glimpse of Western freedom was just too much for the authorities. The same government that funded the film turned around and banned it. Talk about impact.
All right, so from capturing reality, let's jump into a world where reality has no rules whatsoever. We're talking about animation, where the only limit is what you can dream up.
This is a typical European underbrush scene, home of the water shrew. This tiny rodent forages around the banks of streams. It's springtime, the mating season. You know the vibe. Looks like any other nature doc, right?
Then another shrew shows up, and the whole thing just explodes into this insane, slow-motion, Matrix-style martial arts fight. It's an absolutely brilliant send-up of nature docs that turns into this wild action sequence. They even thank Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee in the credits.
But animation isn't just for action comedy. It can handle the heaviest subjects imaginable. Take Norman McLaren's Neighbors. It's this simple story about two guys who fight over a flower that grows between their houses. It escalates and escalates until they actually murder each other's families. The film won an Oscar, but yeah, you guessed it. Distributors in the US and Europe cut the most brutal scenes. It took years, but in the middle of the Vietnam War, McLaren himself put the scenes back in, saying the world needed to see the full, horrible truth of his message. So, we've seen short films that copy reality and some that create totally new ones. Now, let's talk about the films that want to completely tear down the rules of how movies are supposed to work. Welcome, my friends, to the avant-garde.
Look, to put it simply, avant-garde filmmakers aren't really trying to tell you a story with a beginning, middle, and end. They're way more interested in things like rhythm, texture, and pure visual ideas. They want to challenge what you even think a movie is.
Get a load of this. For his Fast film, Virgil Widrick took scenes from old action movies, printed out 65,000 individual frames onto paper, and then, and this is the wild part, he and his team folded each single piece of paper into an origami object. A frame of a car became a paper car. Then they animated all those thousands of paper objects with stop motion. The result is just this mind-melting chase scene made, literally, from the building blocks of other movies.
But here's the thing. These super experimental ideas, they don't just stay locked away in art galleries. They have a funny way of bleeding into the mainstream and influencing the pop culture that we see every single day. Just think about music videos. When MTV came along in the 80s, it created this massive, non-stop need for short films. It basically became this huge laboratory where directors could mess around with storytelling, with abstract visuals, with animation, all the stuff we've been talking about, and beam it straight into everyone's living rooms.
Even the absolute masters of cinema use short films as their playground. You know, Alfred Hitchcock's famous idea of the MacGuffin, right? It's that thing in a movie, the secret plans, the stolen diamonds, that everyone is chasing, but in the end, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just a trick to get the story moving.
Well, in this amazing little twist, Martin Scorsese made a 9-minute commercial based on that very idea. The whole film pretends to be a newly discovered, unfinished script by Hitchcock that Scorsese is completing. It's just a masterclass in style, full of nods to Hitchcock's movies, and he even uses green screen to digitally place his actors into old film backdrops.
And get this commercial was so good, so artistically done, that it won 45 international awards at film festivals. It was treated less like an ad and more like a genuinely great short film.
So this is what it all boils down to. We've got to stop thinking of short films as just a warm-up for the main event. They are a destination. They're a space for political rebellion, for wild animation, for tearing cinema apart and putting it back together, and for literally shaping the look and feel of our culture.
And the truth is, the language of the short film is everywhere now, more than ever. It's all over your phone. So the next time you're scrolling through TikTok or just watching a commercial,
ask yourself this question. Is it telling a tiny story? Is it playing with visuals like one of those avant-garde pieces? Is it using its short runtime for maximum emotional punch? Because once you start looking for it, I promise, you will see the DNA of the short film absolutely everywhere.